Eli Stowers and Diego Pavia participated in the NFL Draft Combine. Did they raise their stock? Did it skyrocket?
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Corey Burton, and on today's episode, we're going to talk a lot about the NFL Draft Combine. How did Eli Stowers and Diego Pavia participated last week in the NFL Draft Combine? What did that event do for their stock? Did it improve it? Did it stay the same? Did it skyrocket? Any downgrades? We'll talk about how that potentially affects their stock and what they have to do heading into pro days as a part of this draft process. I thought Diego Pavia threw well. I think there's a lot of differing opinions there. Eli Stowers delivered a stellar performance in all of his testing numbers. We'll talk about that as well as we roll on here on the Locked On Vandy podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Like I said, thanks for making us your first listen. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Now, at the NFL Draft Combine, Eli Stowers was one of the surprises, I think, of the Combine because not a lot of people anticipated his numbers were going to be quite that good, like the number one tight end in modern Combine history since 2003. There hadn't been a tight end to jump 45 inches since then, maybe ever. I don't know. He's tied for first in the highest vertical leap, 45 and a half inches. Kenyon Sadiq was that until Eli Stowers jumped at 43 and a half. But Eli Stowers outdid him by a couple of inches, and man, that was impressive. 11 did that as well in the broad jump, 11 feet 3 inches in the broad jump for Eli Stowers compared to Kenyon Sadiq's 11 feet 1 inch broad jump. And then Sadiq got him in the 40-yard dash. Sadiq ran a 4.39. Eli Stowers ran a 4.5. So, again, two really great prospects at the tight end position. I think this shows you just the development overall of this position. I mean, two of the best prospects in this draft, two of the most athletic tight ends to enter the NFL are these two. And I think for Eli Stowers, that stellar performance really elevated his draft stock. I think he's a lot of GMs, a lot of scouts, a lot of front office people are now writing his name down and saying, I don't know if we actually need him, but we could find a role for somebody that athletic. We can create some mismatches and find a way to get him integrated into the game plan and make it a nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators. I know the Broncos and Sean Payton love that kind of player. He's that kind of joker type position where it's not a true tight end. He can do some tight end things, but he's also just kind of a weapon, a joker, or whatever you want to call it. They have unique names for those positions, but it's going to be interesting now to see where he goes, because I think a lot of people had Eli Stowers in those way too early mock drafts, mocked in the first round, towards the end of the first round, Philadelphia, Denver, like those type places. And then there were some things that came out kind of down the road. There's varying different evaluations of Eli Stowers. Maybe he's not fast enough to create mismatches. He's kind of a missing, a lost puzzle piece, so to speak. And teams weren't going to be sure what to do with him because he has just enough athletic ability to be a weapon, but not quite good enough to be that premier guy. So you didn't really know where to slot him. But I think after this weekend, dude can jump, has NBA level vertical leap, has a lot of burst as evidenced by the broad jump, and also can run the 40 at 4.5, which for a tight end is moving, not quite as fast as Kenyon Sadiq, but both of those guys are extremely explosive. And Sadiq was the number one tight end in this draft unequivocally. Like, there was no questions. There was never going to be any questions. He was always the number one guy. I think Eli Stowers planted himself as the number 2 option. Now, where that number 2 option goes, we'll kind of talk through that here in just a little bit. But also Diego Pavia threw at the combine. And Pavia had an interesting combine because he threw, I thought he threw well, but also he did some interviews and those were kind of odd. Those were kind of whatever you want to call them. He had some odd answers that people reacted to. I think he was joking, but people didn't really get the joke. And, some of those things can go over people's heads sometimes. So, and I wasn't sure how to take it. The frontal lobe comment where he said, I've got 365 days before I mature. I don't know if people knew what to do with that comment, myself included. But honestly, I think it's a big nothing burger, but I think people like to pick out some things with that. And of course, anytime you throw in the combine, it's always tough for quarterbacks to throw because it's so inconsistent because you're throwing to people you've barely met. You don't know how they break, where they like the ball. There's a lot of things you don't know. You just have to kind of do the best you can. You're going to miss some targets. You're going to, but I thought he threw well overall. I mean, obviously his deep ball is probably not quite where teams would like it to be, but honestly, I don't, and a lot of people think Diego hurt his draft stock. I don't think he hurt it. I don't think he necessarily helped it a ton. I think he just kind of stayed right where he was. I think with his throwing performance, I thought it was good. I thought it proved that he can play in this league, but obviously not as a starter, I don't think. But he will make a roster. He will be somebody that is going to could possibly be in the NFL for quite some time, kicking around on some rosters and kicking around the backup circuit. But I mean, the dude's a gamer. He's tough. He's competitive. He's somebody that's a connector that's going to connect locker rooms, and some of the intangible stuff I think is going to make him valuable to some of these teams. I don't know that somebody's going to come up in day 2 and grab him. I'd be surprised if they did. I never thought that, at 5'9", that's a tough thing to do. You have to be supremely gifted and just elite at a lot of things. And I don't think Diego's elite at a lot of things for the NFL level. I think he was an elite college football quarterback. He was a Heisman finalist, led Vanderbilt to just about all the success that they had. He was the guy taking the snaps. Obviously, it's a team sport. But again, I don't think he hurt his draft stock. I don't think he helped it. I think he kind of just stayed kind of in that late day 3 range, kind of the same place. Kind of the same thing he did at the Senior Bowl. It was one step forward, one step back, just kind of standing in the same place. He would make progress to show that he can do it, and then he would, things would happen based on his limitations, and it was just kind of that back and forth. And say what you want to say about him, but he's going to end up on a roster. If you get him in camp and you get him competing, to me, I feel like it's going to be hard to cut him. I really think it's going to be hard to cut him. I think he's going to make it hard to cut him. You're going to get him in some preseason game, and he's going to lead some comeback, and guys are going to like having him in the locker room, things like that. So for that sake, he's probably going to end up on a roster. He's going to be competitive. He's somebody that if he has to start or if he has to play, I don't think he's going to kill you. I think he's going to be able – I don't think he can start 18 games in the NFL, but I also don't think he is somebody who is going to be cut after training camp and never heard from again either, which is the opinion of a lot of people. So I guess people would disagree with that notion. So the performances so far for Eli Stowers in the Combine, for Diego in Senior Bowl and Combine, what does it do to their draft stock? I'll talk about that next. Stick around. It's the Locked On Vandy. Hey, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Yeah, college basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, from early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits my read, all of that. You can mix spreads, totals, player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. You just look at the odds, man, just figure out what you want to do. There's all kind of odds sitting out there. for you to play. You just got to go through and pick what you like, build that parlay, and let's go. You can go safe, you can go bold, you can ride with the team you've been following all season. You can go within your conference. I mean, there's a lot of different things. It's your parlay, your style, and now with more upside behind it. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. And also, Indeed it is. You have workplace chaos. You have deadline stacking up. You have your inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. And when the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills, experience, location, all of that. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. So less stress, less time, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your premium job status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. So just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed right here on Locked On Vandy. So Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. You can use your sports knowledge in moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a powered market by people, in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. So trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps, trades involving significant risk, and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, wrap it up here. Locked on Vandy, talking about Eli Stowers, talking about Diego Pavia. I want to know your opinion on their combine experience. Did Eli Stowers' draft stock skyrocket? Did it stay the same? Same with Diego Pavia. Has his experience in this draft process, has he improved his draft stock? Has it kind of stayed the same? Did it go down? Like, how do you feel about these two and their draft stock? What do they need to do ahead of Pro Day to ensure that they can elevate their draft stock as best they can ahead of April's NFL draft? So for Eli Stowers, man, I think for his stock, to me, I think it went through the roof. I think it was already high. I think he was already kind of a late second round, early third round, somewhere in that ballpark coming into the combine, with his natural talent and the tape that he had on film for the scouts. I think he was right there. I think he was the second or third best tight end in this draft based on what he did at Vanderbilt alone, the mismatches he created, some of the plays that he made, and the ability and the type of player that he brings to the table for any organization. I thought he kind of fit into that range right there because he wasn't a true tight end. He wasn't a true wide receiver. He was kind of that in-between. So those in-between guys, offense or defense or whatever, those guys tend to get drafted day two as their ceiling, unless they're just super elite, and then they can get drafted in the first round. But they tend to get drafted day two or later. But for Eli Stowers, I think jumping an NBA vertical at 45.5 inches, I think broad jump 11 feet 3 inches on that shows his explosiveness. The 40-yard dash, I think, kind of goes with it. But what they're really looking for, he's fast enough. That 40 time is fast enough to where if you have a jump ball in the end zone, you got a guy who's his height 6'4", 6'5", can jump 45 inches. you're going to draft that, because when you get down to the red zone, it's about mismatches, it's about matchups, it's about creating those type of situations to where you get him on a safety or you get him on a shorter corner and you can just throw it up there to the back pylon and watch him go get it. That's something that NFL GMs, that's something that head coaches and scouts and everybody involved in the organization is going to want to see. So I think just posting those numbers have piqued the interest of a lot of these GMs. And I think people are rearranging their draft boards at the tight end position to say, okay, what is our tight end situation like? Do we need Eli Stowers? Does he fit? And you got head coaches scrambling now to say, okay, this is how he fits. Let's go get him. And I could see him now at the upper part of round 2 with a possibility of jumping into the back end of the first round. Like, I think he's kind of in that range where he was mocked at the beginning of the season or during the summer. So it's interesting to kind of see how it ebbed and flowed, his draft stock, because I think his stats were driving a lot of that narrative. His stats weren't out of this world stellar because teams were game planning for him. I think some other people emerged for Vanderbilt. So his stats weren't what people thought they should be. But it's not about stats. It's about traits. It's about what you bring from a matchup perspective. So if you're explosive, if you're athletic, and you can bring something to the table that's unique, which Eli Stowers does, that's going to make you valuable. And I think whichever team drafts him is going to be lucky. And if it's the Broncos, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think he's a better version of Evan Ingram in that type of role. Or if the Falcons ever decided to move on from Kyle Pitts, if they wanted a backup for Kyle Pitts or somebody that is kind of an insurance policy for Kyle Pitts, that would be a guy for them to draft. The Titans could draft a guy like that to pair with Gunnar Helm to kind of give you that dynamic 1-2 punch at the tight end position. You draft Jeremiah Love with the 4th overall pick. I mean, you've got yourself a pretty explosive offense there for Cam Ward and this new coaching staff. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see where Eli Stowers goes. Now, as far as Diego Pavia goes, I think 6th, 7th round is somewhere that I think fits him pretty well. I think some team will want to jump in there and take a shot at seeing what he can provide to their roster. I don't know that anybody's grading him as a starter quality. I don't think that was ever a case because of just the attributes he has at the NFL level. I just don't think will necessarily translate. Now, people have doubted him before, and he's proved a lot of people wrong throughout his entire journey. But there's a cap to that, honestly. And for Diego Pavia, I think there's going to be a handful of teams that saw the Heisman thing and is like, we're not going to mess with him. It doesn't matter. We're not going to mess with him. There's a handful of teams that are like, okay, we'll take a look at him. Like, I think he did enough to garner day 3 status. I think he did enough to show that he can make a roster as a backup quarterback, 3rd string, 2nd string, fighting for that quarterback 2 role in a stable system. Like, I think if he goes to an organization that's kind of off the rails, it's not going to be good. Like, if he goes to the Jets, like, I don't think that's a good fit for him because that organization's a mess. New York will eat you alive as well from a media perspective. So I don't know that going there would be a great move for him. Now, he doesn't have control of that unless he signs as a free agent, but I don't know that would be a good environment for him. I think going somewhere with a more stable organization would be the best route if he can choose, or that'll be the best route for him to be successful. Now, if somebody drafts him that's not a great organization, obviously you can't control that. But it's going to be interesting kind of see where he falls and what people think of him as they evaluate the entire thing. Because there's aspects of him that teams aren't going to like. They're not going to like his confidence, his arrogance, I guess you could say. There's going to be teams that don't think he's a worthy quarterback from the throws that he made and from the time he spent in the Senior Bowl. Like, he's not somebody that's going to electrify you down the field. He never was, never will be. But he's scrappy. He can make plays. He can move the chains. He can do a lot of different things for you. Except he's not going to hit an alarming rate of deep balls on you, especially at the NFL level. But if a team is okay with that as a backup quarterback, then I think he'll be a good fit somewhere. But he's a good locker room guy, I think. I think his teammates love him. I don't know that everyone in the media loves him, but his teammates love him. He's a guy that's he's gonna come in, fight hard. He's gonna do all the right things from a practice perspective. So I think guys will respect that. But it's just a matter of, can these GMs and scouts and stuff, what are they going to do in this process to evaluate that? Because he's not in a position where he's going to get these top 30 visits, or he may. I don't know. I mean, there might be a couple interested teams that want to talk to him and do some digging and just to see, hey, do we want to take a chance on this dude? But as far as he goes, I think 6th or 7th round, he's going to fight his way onto a roster, and I think he'll kind of like fight year to year to be on a roster. He might be on 4 or 5 different teams throughout his career, but I think he's going to kind of kick around the league as a backup. He might get a few snaps here and there. He's going to be a preseason marketing guru. Like they're going to throw him out there in these preseason games, and there's going to be a lot of people that come and watch him because he's a lightning rod. But I think, everyone has a ceiling. I think that's his. And I love Diego. I appreciate what he did for Vanderbilt, and he had a stellar career here in 2 seasons at Vanderbilt. And he won Newcomer of the Year. He was a Heisman finalist. He was, SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Like he had a lot of accolades at Vanderbilt. But then, of course, there is a ceiling for quarterbacks. And there's a very obvious hard ceiling for quarterbacks in the NFL. Some of the most successful ones don't do well. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But I just think that's where his ceiling is. We'll see it'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes in this April's draft. So I'm kind of curious with that. But I thought they both did well. Eli Stowers, obviously, he blew the roof off of the building with his performance. I think a lot of people, I wasn't shocked, but I think a lot of people were with how much. I was kind of surprised at the number. I didn't know it was going to be quite that high. But again, it's a situation where he really helped himself tremendously. So, but good for both of them. We'll see kind of how the draft process rolls out. For Pro Day, I just think for Diego, he's just got to show that he can be good enough with the deep ball accuracy. I think some of those throws were really good, and a couple of those throws were right on the money. But I think the consistency of those throws are going to be what affects him. It's not necessarily he can make that throw. It's just, can he make that throw consistently, because he has to put so much more into it than some of these other guys. So that's a factor. Can he make those throws on the out routes? You got to have a lot more velocity on the ball with these NFL defenders. So he's got to improve on that. Eli Stowers, somehow improve your numbers. I don't know how you do that. Your numbers are already stellar. Just have a good pro day, stay healthy, and I think he will get – I think Eli Stowers is in line for a really good career, really nice career in the NFL. And I think some of the other guys that are draft eligible as well can find their way on rosters. Like Jordan White, I think, is going to be a really good center for somebody. I don't know why he didn't get invited to the Combine, but at Pro Day, he's going to surprise a few folks, and I think he's going to work his way onto some draft boards at the center position. I think he's going to have a really nice career as a center in the NFL. So that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Vandy part of your day. Leave your comments down below. What is their draft stock? How do you see it? How do you see it shaking out? Did you think Eli's draft stock skyrocketed? Did Diego Pavia do anything to help himself? What do you think? Where do you predict they're going to go? All of that. Answer all those questions right down below. You can find the show on social media at Locked On Vandy, wherever you get your podcast as well. And make sure you enjoy the show. We're going to talk basketball as well, baseball as it continues to roll on. Spring practice is right around the corner, so that's coming up. That'll be something that is going to be an exciting topic because we finally get some football. We finally get to see episode 1 of the Jared Curtis era, so that's going to be cool. And just make sure you stay tuned. Keep it locked right here on Locked On Vandy. Join the Everydayers Club. Anchor down. Peace.